Of course, he needs no introduction. Joel Skousen, his uncle wrote The Naked Communist and The Naked Capitalist, really expanding our paradigm of political understanding. He's the editor-in-chief of World Affairs Brief, worldaffairsbrief.com, political scientist, also a fighter bomber pilot, and a lot more. I won't go through his entire bio because of time constraints. He has a huge breaking analysis. Lord James to the House of Lords. I laundered money for IRA. Terrorism conspiracy in the UK involving Bank of England. All of this on the heels of the German bomb last week being a U.S. drill. So were the printer cartridges, folks. The British said they weren't bombs. Obama said, hey, we know they're bombs. Check them again. I mean, slap the cuffs on right there, folks. They're doing this out in the open. Now, you've got all these Obama and Clinton advisors saying Obama needs terror. They're saying it on Meet the Press. They're saying it in the Financial Times of London. They are really gearing up. And they see this huge protest against the TSA and this act of domination. They know that they're going to let this grow up to a crescendo, then stage events, and say, we don't ever want to hear any complaints. You cause deaths, even though more people die each year from honeybee stings than from terror. So I wanted to get Joel Skousen's take on government-sponsored terror first, what's happening with the TSA, and how that dovetails with Glenn Beck. Geraldo Rivera came out twice in the last week and said 9/11 could be an inside job, that Building 7 may have been a controlled demolition, that 9/11 truth may not be despicable now. Why is Rupert Murdoch greenlighting that? Beck has come out and directly said Obama's people are getting ready for a new Oklahoma City bombing to be blamed on Beck. And, of course, in those reports they're issuing, they blame yours truly as well. But Beck says he's the center of the universe. The point is a major shift. Joel, we're going to break in about 6 minutes, but you've got the floor on this constellation of issues that orbit each other. Break down what you see happening right now.
Well, let's talk about the TSA thing first. It's very important for listeners to understand the two provocations that gave TSA all of the excuse and justification to go through taking your shoes off. That was the shoe bomber. The crotch bomber gave us these backscatter X-ray naked scanners, as we call them. But both of those provocations were absolutely false terrorism. There is no way that an actual trained terrorist would not know that you cannot light plastic explosives with a match and expect it to blow up. And that happened in both cases of the shoe bomber and the crotch bomber. They had no blasting cap in there. I mean, if you're going to light it with a match, you would have stuck a blasting cap in it and said, light the fuse on the blasting cap.
And the government helped both of them get on the planes. That's on record.
Absolutely. So I am convinced that if, in fact, the American people, and there's a major backlash against this groping type pat-down and against the scanners, that their only solution is to throw another false terrorist attack to show us, look, we've got to have these things, so everyone ought to shut up. And I think that's exactly what's coming. They will not take no for an answer. Now, one of the things that I'm most concerned about, I pointed out in my World Affairs Brief this past Friday's issue, is that I think there's a trend here. I'm very, very worried that they're violating a major rule they've had a long time, that you don't bother the majority of American people too much or there'll be a backlash. And they are clearly at the airports bothering the majority of American people, and they're getting a backlash. So why would they go against their own general rules against initiating a backlash? I mean, even John Pistole, in talking to Congress, was just defiant. Am I sensitive? Yes. Am I going to change anything? No.
So they're getting us ready to unveil the American people as the enemy.
Well, yes, that's true. But there's another catch-22 here, and that's what happened with the pilots. The pilots had a legitimate reason not to have to go through these scanners. I mean, if you can't trust the pilots with the airplane, who have background checks, who are authorized to carry firearms in the airplane, then who can you trust? So they
plus, once they're in the airplane, as you know, sir, and you're a pilot yourself, a fighter pilot, once you're in the airplane, a 747, 940-something thousand pounds, the biggest missile you can get, it's asinine.
Absolutely true. And so what happens, they entered into secret negotiations with the Obama administration this week, and the Obama administration, seeing this bullet coming that they could not sustain making pilots going through this obnoxious security stuff, they offered them a deal that if you agree to give us biometric scans.
Yes.
So that we have a biometric ID that will let you off the hook. Now, I think there's a possibility they may offer this to the American people.
Oh, you're right. They already did it. They said, don't worry. By next year, we'll have trusted traveler. If you go through, and then that sets the precedent that the government authorizes travel or not, and basically legitimizes and standardizes the no-fly list.
That's exactly right. And I think it's something that people will jump at. It's a pure Hegalian dialectic. You create enough tension, then you say, we give you an out. It's, and you'll jump at it because it's so much better than being groped by TSA. And I think that's what they're setting us up for.
I can totally concur with you, and your gut is already confirmed. You must have missed it. They are now actually announcing this. And TSA, going back to Homeland Security head Ridge about 7 years ago, he said, you will have not just a no-fly list, a no-buy list, a no-job list. You'll have to have this card and biometrics to do everything. And then that's the true cashless society control grid. Then they claim any underground economy is now associated with terrorism.
Yeah, I think that's where we're headed. And as I say, they're using this type of false flag terrorism in order to drive all of this. But I do feel that we're going to get some other kind of terrorist attack here. It's just been a long time, and not only is skepticism growing about 9/11, but it's also enraged now about the TSA, and so they've got a problem here.